gets submitted to us by Samuel Polay, who writes, A Quiet Place Part 2 opened with over $46 million. I actually think it was a little bit higher than that this weekend. Only $4 million short of the first movie, despite having limited theatrical capacity in most markets. Cruella did not impress that much, although it did exceed their expectations. Cruella did not impress that much, earning less than $30 million for the 4-day weekend. Do you think Cruella's numbers will make Disney change their strategy for Black Widow? No, absolutely not. And what are your thoughts on the box office as a whole? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, listen, you guys saw my review. I did my quick out of the theater review of A Quiet Place Part 2. You guys know it's my number one most anticipated movie this year because the first one was my number one movie of the year of 2018. And this movie does not disappoint. It's awesome. It's a fabulous time. John Krasinski does it again. And, you know, he just made an absolutely killer, maybe even superior sequel to the original, which doesn't happen all that much. But how are people going to respond? Are people going to come out and see it? Well, the answer to that, Rob, is a resounding yes. This comes to us from the folks over at Box Office Mojo, who writes, winning the holiday weekend by far was the John Krasinski-directed follow-up to 2018 surprise horror hit A Quiet Place. The eagerly anticipated sequel scared up $48.4 million in the 3-day window between Friday and Sunday. Estimates for the PG-13 film's 4-day haul puts it in North American receipts at around $58.5 million. The previous record holder for this post-pandemic box office era was Warner Brothers' Godzilla vs. Kong, which bowed with $32 million back in March of 2021. And you guys remember how big of a deal that was that it made $32 million. In the runner-up spot was Disney's Cruella, an origin story starring Emma Stone about the rise of the 101 Dalmatians puppy-hating villain Cruella de Vil. The PG-13 rated film also came out of the gate to solid numbers, despite being available on Disney Plus for an additional $30 fee. Cruella pulled in $21.3 million in the first 3 days of the long weekend. All right, so that comes us from the folks over at Box Office Mojo. And here's the thing about this, Rob. This is outstanding numbers.
Yeah.
Like, when you especially consider the fact that, number one, there is still limited capacity seating. Number two, there is still a good chunk of the movie-going audience that is not yet ready to go back to the movie theaters. And number three, and this is one I don't hear anybody talking about, Rob, don't underestimate how big of a negative impact delay after delay after delay can have. This was a movie that was supposed to come out over a year ago. And so a lot of energy can be dropped over time as it's pushed and then pushed again and then pushed again. And yet, despite all of that, limited theatrical capacity, a lot of people still not ready to go back to the movies yet. The fact that it faced delay after delay after delay, and it kind of got lost a little bit in the wash. This thing still basically made the same amount of money in its opening weekend that the first one did, shattering the Godzilla vs. Kong numbers.
Yeah.
By $16 million, it shadowed those numbers. So, I mean, that's huge. That's impressive. This is great. Box Office Mojo was writing it as you could hear all of Hollywood taking a deep sigh of relief seeing that. And as far as Cruella, look, the reality is a lot of people were not expecting Cruella to do great. And I'm a big fan of Disney movies, Rob, going into Cruella. Now, listen, I liked Cruella a lot. I think Cruella's quite good. I think it's not a top 10 movie of the year candidate, but it's quite a good movie. And I enjoyed it, but I was not super stoked for it going into it. And Rob, I never really sensed from many people. And by the way, Skylar Hillman sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Skylar. I never sensed a lot of people being super excited about it. I just didn't. And, for it to still come out and making its opening 3-day weekend over $21 million at the box office, where it faced all the same problems that A Quiet Place did, plus it was having to face off against Quiet Place, plus it was also available online if people wanted to watch it there. And by the way, I heard the premium subscription numbers for Cruella were not good. Let's just say a little birdie told me the initial numbers are not good. But at any rate, so their expectations for what Cruella could do at the box office was actually relatively low. And these numbers actually exceeded that. So They said this is the first weekend. I forget the number. Box Office Mojo said this is the first weekend the box office had $100 million weekend in a long time. And so, Rob, there's no other way to look at this, particularly if you're John Krasinski and the people behind, even if you're Michael Bay. People forget Michael Bay is a producer on these movies. If you're Michael Bay and John Krasinski and the other people behind Quiet Place and everybody else, this is a great weekend for them. Couldn't have happened to a better movie. And you know what? The word of mouth on Quiet Place 2 is going to be strong. I expect it to see less than a 60% drop for next weekend. Just good things all around, Rob. Couldn't have happened to a better movie. I'm thrilled. Rob, you're hearing these numbers. You're seeing these things. We were ecstatic when Godzilla vs. Kong cracked 30. Now we got something getting close to cracking 50. If you take the long holiday weekend in as well, it's almost $60 million. What are your thoughts? What's attributed to it having this kind of success right now? What do you think it means for the industry overall?
Well, I think one, Quiet Place is a movie that was very well liked when it came out, first of all. And then the anticipation for the sequel, you've got the same creative team coming back. I mean, obviously Krasinski isn't in the movie the way he was in the first movie, but same creative team. He's directing again. And I just think that it delivers. It was a movie that really, for as far as sequels go, I mean, maybe in 10 years, people will think of it as one of the great sequels ever made, really, that it really delivers the goods and it delivered on the promise of the first movie. And I think it's a great movie. And so that's what makes people go to the theater. And I think people are excited about it. It's definitely a movie that benefits from a theatrical experience with an audience because of the nature of the film. And I think, people are itching to get out of the house. And this was something that it shows, John, when you have a movie that people want to turn up for, they will. And same with Cruella, really. I mean, I was really impressed with the marketing. I haven't seen Cruella. I think the marketing of the film has been great. It really made me want to see it. And I think this is great. It really bodes well for all the other movies we have coming out for the rest of the year. I don't think that anyone's going to shy away from theatrical releases, assuming our COVID cases continue to go down. So I think it's great. It's great for everybody. All the way, audiences, the studios, the filmmakers themselves. It's just a great thing.
And man, as great as everybody's feeling about it right now, can you imagine the air? You would have been audibly been able to hear the air coming out of Hollywood's tires if like Quiet Place came out at like 25 million and Cruella came in around where they were kind of expecting it lower. I don't know, maybe like 15 or 10. It's like, ooh, like these are ones people were particularly A Quiet Place was one, but it exceeded expectations and it's great. And by the way, Skylar Hillman sends in another super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Skylar.
But you know what I think is also great? I think there's a general overall excitement about entertainment again, even on platforms such as streaming. We heard that HBO, their service went out last night with everybody trying to stream Mayor of Easttown. And that was, again, great quality programming. And when we have great entertainment, whether it's, I think it feeds off of itself. If people are watching things and they're satisfied, whether they're in theaters or whether they're new streaming series, it gives an overall excitement about entertainment in general. And I think that's what this weekend shows us, is that you have two very different movies and people are excited to be entertained again. And they've forgotten that, like, my God, that movies can be great, that there is magic. And when you see even a great streaming series, I mean, now it's everybody's home. That's what they were doing, watching things. But when there's appointment television going on, it means people are engaged, and they're not just engaged from the streaming shows, they're engaged by everything. And I think we're going to see more and more and more of that. And it's just going to help the industry overall, that it's no longer a slog, like I'm sick of being home, so I'll just watch something. It's no. I'm genuinely excited to watch this particular thing. And I think it's great. I think it's great.
You know what's not great, though? That even though Cruella did a little bit better than expected, the reality is this. Disney is going to take a bath on Cruella.
Yeah.
Because they spent, there are some reports going around out there that they spent $200 million. That's not the case. They didn't spend $200 million, but they spent a hell of a lot. What I actually heard was the number was around $175 million. Now, I don't know that officially for sure, but there's no way.
It's pricey.
there's no way they're breaking even on this movie. There's just, but Rob,
Right.
there was no way. I could have told you the day they announced they were doing this movie that there was no way they're going to break even on Cruella. There's just not a chance. Like, you're talking about a character who skins puppies. Like, nobody,
Right.
there was not a lot of people were down with the ideas. Like, oh, I mean, it's an interesting concept, but from the day that I saw them talking about a D23, I never heard anybody buzzing about it, whatever. This was one that was going to take a bath regardless. So it's going to be, it's too bad because it's actually a pretty damn good movie and Emma Stone is fantastic in it, but hey, It is what it is. Question is for you guys. What do you think about these numbers for A Quiet Place and the box office as a whole? The entire industry is kind of celebrating right now, seeing some life being breathed back in. Did you guys like the numbers? Have you even seen either of these movies? If so, what did you think? Jump on down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys.